I will call the meeting to order. Can I get sorry, I'm trying to scroll here. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? We don't have any additions or deletions that I know of, correct?
Moved.
No. Scott? Second, thank you, Lisa. Any discussion about the agenda? All those in favor of approving as is?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Perfect. Approval of the minutes from October 3rd, 2024.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion about the minutes? Nothing? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes from October 3rd as they are?
Aye.
Thank you. I will abstain because I was not there. Anybody opposed? Oh, good job. No. All right. All those in favor. Public comments. How are you?
I'm good. You're
Good. No public comments. Good. Superintendent's report.
I'm gonna look at my notes for this one, other details. I had sent out a very general overview of the PICUS report that broke it down kind of into the 7 sections. The PICUS report was garnered by the legislature to go out and hit the research base and try to see what it said about the best way to run schools, and to try to relate that back to how they could change education funding. I think it's kind of important to take a look at the specifics of what they are looking at, and so I'll probably bring up 2 or 3 things each meeting that we have, because I think it really kind of foreshadows where the state may be headed. And given that, we can kind of predict where we may end up 5 or 10 years down the road. And sometimes strategically, it's a good idea if you see it coming to try to get out ahead of it, because you tend to have more options if you do it first than trying to do it afterwards or in a hurry if they change things really quick. So the specific things that they were looking at in terms of facilities and school operations, the first one was a strong recommendation for full-day preschool. And the idea is that if they're well structured, it actually saves money down the line. For every dollar that you put into a preschool program up front, you're going to save $8 to $10 down the line as the kids are going through the rest of their sequence. Core class sizes, they took a good look at the research, and they said that in grades K to 3, they should be capped at 15 students, and in all other grades, they should be capped at 25. And so again, foreshadowing, are they going to pass legislation that sets what teacher to student ratios are based upon what they're running from the research? There should be 1 instructional coach for every 200 students. And one of the things that we've been talking about for the last couple of months, and we've kind of touched on it at the smaller board meetings about, consolidating schools, what would it look like, what would potential benefits be. They came out and said there's a strong correlation between school size, student performance, and cost effectiveness. The ideal size for elementary schools is 400 to 600 students. The ideal size for secondary schools, for high schools, is 500 to 1,000. And then the last piece, just to throw it out there tonight, was they did do some research on the condition of facilities and how students perform based upon those conditions. The research was a little bit mixed, but it's one of the things that the authors didn't do with this research is they didn't look at bias, and they didn't look at the quality of the research, because that type of research can hit a lot of politics because it goes right to the heart of taxes and sounds. But there was a good component of the research that said there was a pretty strong correlation for student performance if you've got new facilities, well-maintained buildings, if you have thermal regulations to avoid excess temperatures, appropriate lighting, you're using relaxing shades of paint, which I thought was interesting, and then obviously limiting external noise. And so those are some of the specifics. And again, the idea is it might give us a foreshadowing of what we can expect out of the legislature over the next couple of years. The staff at Cavendish here are willing to use a new teacher evaluation process that we're going to pilot. And that way, over the course of this year, we can get feedback from them and try to improve it as best we can. But it's really data and goal centered. It's designed to have all the teachers tap into our continuous improvement plans and the other initiatives that we have here, set goals around that, look at objective data to evaluate their progress over the course of the year. So it's really trying to get everybody rowing in the same direction in terms of goals. Negotiations, we actually only negotiate with the teachers this year. The support staff have another year. They're not due till 2026. We did talk with Brett, and I can't pronounce his last name, Mastrangelo. Yeah. And so we're connecting to try to get the first date together. Since a lot of it depends upon legal counsel for the district, we're connecting with Chris Leopold to try to find out what dates he's got available. Once we have those, we can start to set up those meetings. High school, we'll wrap up a little bit here. But one of the things in looking at the academic performance over there, the last week or so, is I talked with John and Kate and provided them with a model homework policy to kind of take a look at. Not that they have to use it, but they'll talk with their advisory, they'll talk with their staff a little bit and get some feedback and see if people feel that it's a good fit in terms of kind of helping the students along the route. So hopefully that's it, at least for now.
Saying that Ludlow Mount Holly's support staff agreement does end in June of 25.
That's it, okay. That's awesome. Because I can reach out specifically to them. So that's right, they're two separate ones.
Yeah.
Lynn, can you just answer for me, Alan, I'm reading this off my phone, sorry, Alan Odden and Lawrence Pikus?
So those are the report authors. That's why they call it.
What are their qualifications? What are their?
I have no idea. It's at the end of the report. They are fairly notable, but that's who they contracted with. Basically, what they did was kind of a meta study. So they weren't really doing any original research of their own. They were going out and looking at what research currently existed. If there were 50 different research studies on a topic they were interested in, they'd look across them and see what the common themes and patterns were. From what I could tell, in terms of what I'm reading, I think it was like 133 pages.
Right. Just curious.
Yeah, I think they're ed researchers, but it'll be in the document towards the end. It's a good question.
Julie?
Yeah.
Do you anticipate or what have you heard about potential state level funding for capital projects?
It's been a little quieter this year than previous years, which is unusual.
I think we're still a few years out.
Yeah, it's my guess is they probably, and I'm projecting, they probably won't make any decisions on it until they've decided how they're gonna fix ed funding. And so once all these studies come in, and what is it? It's in December 2025 that the report the commission's working on is supposed to go to the legislature so that they can consider stuff. So we probably won't have a good idea for at least another year. But again, it's been unusually quiet on that front, and I think they're kind of waiting to see how everything else kind of falls out, and that way they can see how it fits into the overall financing plan. Good questions.
Any other questions for Lane? Facilities director report?
He's off on vacation.
Oh, damn.
Are there specific questions? I'm up on a lot of it, but not as detailed as.
I don't have any specific, but I mean, I know Mount Holly's got a couple projects going and.
Yeah, they've completed most of the work that we were given reserve funds for, and it was significantly less than we thought. The big thing was the roof was kind of at risk. It only cost about $3,000 to do enough repairs to get us through the winter, but it is due for a replacement. And so Todd and I are working on a proposal for the Ludlow Mount Holly group when we meet next time to kind of say, hey, of all the possible things out there that could be done, these are the most critical. These are the things that might stop education if we're not careful. So that's the 2 roofs on the 2 buildings. It is some efficiency upgrades, LED lighting, and a bank of windows at Ludlow. And then the last piece was spending some money to make sure that both buildings are ADA compliant, Americans with Disabilities Act. Yeah.
We have somebody in the waiting room. Curriculum director's report.
That's me. So I have the report in the folder, and I will do a presentation on at the LMH board and the GM board. Essentially, it's reporting out on our benchmark data from this past fall. And just a reminder that when you look at the report, it's really baseline data just as we were starting at the point at which when we did the root cause analysis and created the continuous improvement plan. So that was to start 2024. So a lot of the data that you will see in that report when you look at it, and I'm happy to answer questions, I'll just give you kind of key takeaways from my perspective, which was in grades 4 and 5, both reading and math performance exceeded growth expectations, demonstrating strong progress in these grades. In grade 6, the growth was on target in both subjects, indicating steady progress. And in grades 1 through 3, growth in both reading and math were below projections, particularly in early grades where foundational skills are critical, which is something that we've surfaced and we've talked about over the past couple of years of kind of strategies that we're talking about related to foundational skills in both math and in reading. In math, it dropped from the 53rd percentile in fall to the 46th percentile, signaling a slight decline in proficiency. And similar reading proficiency declined from 58th percentile to 51st percentile. And that's comparing fall to fall data. And again, you can see the charts, and I'll talk more about this at the upcoming meetings. In grades 7 through 12, 64% of students' proficiency levels in math are not defined, suggesting significant gaps in assessment data. We're just implementing IXL, the snapshot tool at the middle high school. Last year was the first year for math, and then we started ELA later in the year. So that's just an area that we're aware of. A couple of change ideas that were really we had shared at the continuous improvement plan presentation in the spring that we're continuing with, which is focusing on the early grade interventions. You may have seen the AOE has released a Read Vermont initiative where there's significant support around coaching for reading in the foundational areas. So we've actually contracted, as you know, with the Stern Center for many years now to support that. And so I've placed TRSU as the possibility of getting coaching support through that as well to help in those areas. Curriculum alignment and review. So currently I'm working, focusing on ELA at first to create, we have pretty much very good vertical alignment when it comes to standards for K-6 with the adoption of BL and some of the program that we've been doing for the past couple of years. And now it's really looking K-12 at where that alignment is in the middle school. So I've been working with the department heads at the high school, and we're starting there and hopefully finish with math by the end of this year. That would be the goal. There's a couple other things that are in the report, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And yes, Julie.
And if this is part of your presentation for the individual boards, I can hold my question, but I am not understanding the graphs at the top of page 2 and what that is telling us.
This is a great question. So in the first paragraph, it talks about observed growth versus projected growth. And so further on page 1, it kind of breaks it down, but I'll give you the summary of what that means. So in the NWE MAPS assessment, it's a norm reference test. So they're suggesting that based on peers at their grade level across the country, the projected growth should be the yellow diamond. Thank you. It's not a triangle. You notice I paused and thought because we go back and forth with the language. But anyway, yeah. And so the observed growth is the bar of our actual students in that grade level. And because it's comparing fall 2023 data to fall 2024 data, you won't see kindergarten, you'll just see first grade.
So what is the trend like? I guess I'm having a hard time understanding like what the learnings are from the, like in both graphs, the decreasing, is that growth?
It's growth. It's measuring growth over time.
Okay.
So for instance, so if I looked at this graph, I could say 4th and 5th grade surpassed the projected growth for that grade level for that year. So they actually are further ahead than the national norms peers in, so the 4th graders in TRSU for math have exceeded the observed growth for their peers at that grade level nationally.
And Emma, can I just add, I don't know if this helps Julie, but there's sort of two things going on here. One is, how does projected compare to actual? That's the diamond versus the bar. But the vertical axis is telling you that the number of RIT score points. RIT is the absolute score of the test. And so if the bar for first grade, it looks like our actual growth was about 14 points, but projected growth would have been about 20 points. And typically at the younger grades, the point growth is higher, because as you get to the upper grades, the amount of knowledge growth is sort of condensed in terms of topics. So the size of the bar tells you how many RIT score points we are looking for. But what we're emphasizing is the comparison between what we actually saw versus what our data projected should have been seen. And when there's a gap there, that's what we focus on.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
Lisa?
Thanks. Can you also say a little bit about the difference between the MAP assessment and these growth scores versus the Vermont assessment and the kind of meeting proficiency or not scores?
Yes, and I'm happy to have Lane and Julie jump in to articulate this too. So VT-CAP, so MAPS is a norm reference test, and VT-CAP is it's assessing standards related to our ELA and our Common Core standards. So in ELA in mathematics and also in science and NGSS. So it's standardized versus norm referenced. And there's other language I think I'm leaving out there. So Julie, if you want to jump in, that would be great. I'm not putting you on the spot, but that would be great if people want
Yeah, I think the word you're thinking of is criteria reference.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah, so it's like about measuring specific types of knowledge. So historically, NWA has done linking studies that give data that would allow you to take what your RIT scores are and predict what might be happening on your state test. They had that study for SBAC. They do not yet have that study for VT-CAP because there's not enough VT-CAP data to create that. That said, Emma Lane and I talked about the fact that we could kind of create our own comparison by looking at the 2 years of VT-CAP data we have and comparing what that came out to say to what the MAP scores said in terms of proficiency, and just be like, okay, if the MAP score said the students were proficient and the VT-CAP score said they weren't, what does that mean? Or vice versa. We haven't done that analysis yet, but we have the data so that we could, while we're waiting for them to create a linking study, once we have more VTCAP data to work from.
Great, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions for Emma or Julie? Good. All right. Financial update.
So I'm going to be brief and then we'll get into some budget. Well, it's not on the agenda. We'll discuss it under the financial update. So I do have October in the folder. There's really nothing stand out to report on those financials. So I've been working on the budget. Lane has a presentation prepared, but this is round one and much to be discussed, before we get to the end of this process.
I'm trying to find the share here. It's like it might work for a change.
Yeah.
Problem is that the top bar always gets in the way of the controls I need. If people are logging in, somebody's going to have to let them in because I can't see this up. So, all right. So this is strictly looking at the Two Rivers, the Supervisory Board's budget. And as Cheryl was saying, that this is really kind of preliminary. I mean, we won't even be able to get anything that's close to being able to kind of predict what impact might be on people's taxes probably until mid-December. But it is giving folks an idea of, kind of what we're looking at and giving the boards a chance to kind of think. Usually what I start with is talking about the current financial landscape that we find ourselves in. And so I think most of us remember last year and that big tax increase that happened across the state. And so that is still going to be in people's minds as we go through this budget process this year. One of the things that we've been trying to do is to make sure that people really understand how education funding in the state of Vermont works, in that everybody is paying for everybody else's education. So, usually for every dollar we spend, we're getting $2 or $3 from somewhere else, as long as we don't cross a limiting threshold that they have set. For this coming year, what we're planning for in this budget cycle, they did a prediction and said, if all the districts across the state of Vermont level fund themselves, there will still be a 7% increase. That's their prediction. And then the other piece that we have is we've got the unknowns of a new administration at the federal level who have talked about things like cutting the Department of Education and grants for educations and things like that. So again, these are the pieces that we need to keep in the back of our minds as we're kind of going through this budget process. Basically, what we're focused on and what our vision is for the budgets across the three boards is making sure that we're meeting our mandatory requirements and making sure that the things that we're asking for are supporting the goals in the continuous improvement plans. The biggest thing is right down there at the bottom is the goal is to support student success. All those things that folks have talked about for the last year or so that the teachers are working very diligently on in terms of district level goals to help us succeed. In terms of the budget process, TRSU is a little bit different, but especially when we get to Ludlow, Mount Holly and Green Mountain boards, we're kind of transitioning a little bit into how the budget creation is done. You start off at the top of the pyramid. There's communication that goes downwards from the board. You communicate what the community desires in terms of your goals and in terms of our continuous improvement plans. All right, that's communicated to the principals, that's communicated to the teachers. We're building an evaluation system that supports that, right? The teachers are developing goals that hopefully support the goals that start off at the level of the board. And then the teachers who are doing the work are the ones that have the best knowledge to be able to say, hey, if I'm working on these goals, these are the resources I need to be successful. And so we're trying to shift to have a bit of a bottom-up input in terms of how we're building our budgets to make sure that we're really targeting the goals strongly that have been set for the district. And we've talked a little bit about this already, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But this is an integral piece of the system that we're building to support the continuous improvement plan. And that is that growth and evaluation process for teachers, right? They are developing goals that support the CIPs. They're working with their principals to decide on the data that they're going to use that's objective, and we have plenty of assessment systems to be able to provide them with that data. And over the course of the year, there are the check-ins, and they're able to use the data to explain how well they're meeting the goals that they have, how well they're meeting those standards. And it doesn't mean that if they don't meet the goal at the end of the year that that's necessarily something negative. It means that we've got more to look at. Did we overestimate what was possible? Did the strategies that we tried to use to achieve this goal, did they just not work? And do we have to kind of change tack at this point in time? But the big piece is getting those teachers involved, especially in terms of the budgeting, because it really kind of connects them to the work. It gives them that sense of ownership and accountability. Right? They were a part of developing this. We're supporting them in what they said they need. And so they're going to be a little bit more connected to what we're doing. So budget changes is broken up into a few different categories. And this is where Cheryl can correct me if I've missed parts and pieces here. But at the central office level, you've got $58,602. It's going to be an increase for health insurance, which went up by 11.9% this year. It is not as bad as previous years, but it still is going to have a dramatic impact on folks' budget. $3,800 for an increase in the yearly audit costs. $2,956 for Red Rover, which is a program that allows us to automatically get subs when we need them. It's an actual app. If a teacher's going to be out, they can log in. They say that they're going to be out. They can upload their lesson plans to it. The substitutes that are on our list will get a notification on their phones. They can open up the positions that are available and tap on the one that they want for the day. We've had a lot of trouble this year. And Cavendish is a good example with being able to get folks that are willing to get up early in the morning and try to secure those subs. So the program cost is $2,900, but we should see some reductions too because we shouldn't pay as many stipends for staff along the way. We probably will still need an overall director to kind of make sure that the program is working right. $15,995 for student software. $38,770 for estimated salary increases, and I'll talk about this for a second. As we're going into negotiation season with the teachers and with the Ludlow Mount Holly support staff, we are estimating where we think negotiations are going to land in terms of their salary increases, especially given the fact that they seem to be starting a little bit late, and so we may not have negotiations done before the board has to vote on its budget in January. So we take our best guess. What I usually recommend for the administrative staff is that whatever the teachers end up getting, the admin should have as well. So that probably reflects that. $12,036 for content curriculum, and so you're looking at an increase of $132,159 total for central office. Thoughts or questions?
The only thing that I would add is that health insurance increase is the 9.11, plus there's also changes in people's plans.
Yeah. Oh, so you've already taken it, who might be coming on and going on.
Yes, and people who are currently here that's changed from like person to family or
Vice versa. Yeah, that's good.
Hey, Lane, can you say that again? All I can hear is background talking.
Yeah. I'll shut the door for just a second.
Somebody let Adrian in?
Yeah.
Oh.
So and it's good Cheryl pointed this out, is that increase, that 58,000, that top line there, that's not just the 11% increase that we're seeing because the cost of health insurance is going up. But she's also taken into account folks that are changing their health insurance plans, right? Some people might be going from a single to a family plan. Some people might be going to a family plan to a single, or taking insurance, through their spouse and giving up their insurance altogether. So that's already wrapped into that number as well. Transportation, and so I put some red in there, so I can talk, Cheryl, about this as we're here. What we were looking at was this idea of probably the biggest complaint that I hear as I go through the cycles with the open forums and connecting with the community members is busing, especially the fact that it's not predictable in both towns. And so we had talked earlier on in the year about this idea that if we get a seventh bus driver, we can set things up in a rotation so that we always have a substitute bus driver available, which is going to make the transportation system a lot more reliable for parents. Instead of getting the call, many mornings that, the bus driver is out today, parents are going to have to bring their kids in. The 53,166 for that increase also said negotiated increase. So I'm assuming it's the cost of the driver as well as what might come out of negotiations with the support staff.
This agreement has already been negotiated, so it's a step on itself.
Okay, gotcha. So it's the mandatory increase based upon the agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
When you say a seventh bus driver, I just want to make sure that I am clear. It is for the TRSU.
Yeah.
And that bus driver would be for the
Both sides.
Holly, Green Mountain. Okay. You said, I thought you said 2 towns, and I just wanted to make sure that it was 2 districts.
Yeah. No, transportation, you are correct. It falls under the TRSU budget, so it's shared. And the purpose of having that substitute is can cover either.
So I have budgeted for Mount Holly to get a bus. At least to start.
Be fun.
Special education's the big one, and Mary is here as well, and so can jump in. In terms of the special education department, they're looking at a $107,265 increase for health insurance, just like we talked about last time. Health insurance increases plus the change in people changing health plans. Out of district tuition, these are students that usually we cannot accommodate here, that we send off to schools that are designed to help them where we cannot. So that's an increase of $271,000. We're also responsible for transporting those students back and forth to those out of district placements. So that's an increase of $218,000. 85,661 is our prediction about where negotiations are going to land with the teachers. So that would be the contractual increase. 77,201 for the intensive needs program as an additional staff member there. 180,000 for 2.36 full-time equivalents for the early education program. Those are paraprofessionals, most likely for preschool. 41,699 for elementary paraprofessionals, and then 97,000. I got an extra number in there. It's not that big. Cost of additional benefits. So about 1,080,000 total increase in terms of special education. Got to take that extra number out. Questions, thoughts with the 3 of us here?
Should we say anything about what we're planning to do? Yeah. So what we're planning to do is, because the budget is so high with our students that are placed outside of our supervisory union, we're going to look at doing a life skills program at Green Mountain, bringing back some of the students, not all of them, some of them, and the same with a program for students that have emotional and behavioral concerns. We're going to look very closely at the out-of-district placements and see where we can bring people back and where it would be appropriate to help us save on tuition and transportation. So
Mary's had a really good set up a really good program in that intensive needs. They're doing tremendous work with the students that are in there. And the other benefit, I think, of these programs, if they're built next year, is similar to the intensive needs, where if we've got space, we can tuition students in to take advantage of those programs from other districts, which would, raise some revenue for us. So it's a very good plan that she's put together. Thoughts, questions before we move on to what I think is the last piece? And really just kind of a overall summary. So the current year, the year in which we're existing right now, 24-25, it's a $10 million budget. It's going to go up by about 1.3 million based upon the recommendations in this draft budget. I've broken down the cost centers. I actually just pulled the data directly from Cheryl's work, which is the central office is one cost center, transportation and special education. You've got the differences there, what the increases are and what the percent change is. So the total TRSU budget increase is about 14.3%. Special education, just so people have something to compare it to, the norm in the state of Vermont from year to year is a 14% increase. And that's TRSU budget, unless folks have questions, or Mary or Cheryl.
Question. Can you scooch back one slide for me? If I guess I just want to be clear that the 77 for the staff for the intensive need program, that's the current program as it is right now. If you were able to put together the life skills program, some of that money would then be able to come out of the out-of-district tuition and transportation lines here to build that program.
Right, because it's, we had 10 kids, and there's about 60,000, that gives us enough for a teacher and whatever else we need. And then save us transportation also.
Right.
Yeah, and these are interesting programs, especially in terms of looking at a budget, because you don't necessarily see the cost savings because you're not spending the money because the program isn't requiring you to do it. Yeah, so like we had a Raven program that was similar. It was 26,000 for the kids to be in the program. It would have cost us 120 to have them out. So over the course of every 3 or 4 years, it was saving the district $1 million, but you don't actually see it in the numbers because it's stuff that we never had to raise and spend. So
and for students in the intensive needs program, it can cost 200 to 300,000. So.
Any other questions for Lane or Mary or Cheryl?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, Julie.
On the special education slide, are you bringing back the concept of like an assistant director that had come up last year?
No, because I have some figures plugged into the Idea B grant that kind of supports that right now. So we would not add that.
Okay. And the FTEs captured here, the 2.36 and the 1.39, did I hear you say those are net increase FTEs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Old business? We have second read for F28, which is the wellness policy, Federal Child Nutrition Act and nutrition. B8, electronic communication between employee and students, and F3, fire and emergency preparedness drills.
The 3 of those, they are mandatory. And so the language of those those policies actually comes from the VSBA. They usually connect with Lynn Blackman to do the write-ups for them. So again, they're mandatory. And they've been vetted already by legal counsel. The legal counsel was the ones that wrote it. I don't know if there's specific questions on any of them. Wellness policy, basically, it refers to the smart snacks guidelines. It's basically another reduction in the amount of sugar that students can have during the school day. The electronic communications between employees and students is really some good guidelines for our professional staff, our teachers, administrators, coaches, so that they're not getting themselves into trouble by communicating with the students in ways that they should. And then the fire and emergency preparedness drills goes along with kind of the entrance protection plan that came out about the same time in response to the swatting incident a year or two ago. And it's just a part of making sure that we're doing the options-based drills. That's the big change that puts in there. You give a scenario to the students, and instead of the old standard lockdown drill where the students will go and hide, they listen to what the scenario is and they decide what the best action is, whether it's run, hide, or fight. And then they talk out exactly what they do in that situation so that they're well prepared in case something happens.
So they are all second read, so we can approve them for adoption if people are ready. Do I have a motion to adopt?
So made.
Thank you. Was that you, Lisa?
No, it's Adrian.
Adrian, sorry.
And I'll second.
Thank you. So all those in favor of adopting F28 wellness policy, Federal Child Nutrition Act and nutrition, B8 electronic communication between employees and students, and F3 fire and emergency preparedness drills. Did you just blast in on? Anybody opposed?
No.
Perfect, thank you. And then there is a vote on the policy governance.
I don't think that we were going to vote. I think we were just discussing it further if people had more questions. And then I think, Lane, you were going to talk about the education.
I can do that. So probably, if you're all right with me.
Yeah.
Are there further questions at all on the policy governance? We had a training that several people attended that was in person at the high school a few weeks back. We've got 2 people that are signed up going through the accelerator program. That's the online course, which is good. And so people are, it looks like, getting themselves familiar with what policy governance is.
So just discussion on that, and we're all set.
Are there a lot of schools that have that adopted, or?
It's good question. It
started back in like 2017 or something. I was doing a lot of my own research on it. It sounds like I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's been growing, and in fact, the VSBA, when it's talking about coming in and working with boards to train them in governance, it is one that they suggest highly. So it's a governance process. So it's slowly kind of picking up steam in the state.
New business annual report.
So that was every year you have the annual report that goes out to the voters. Typically, the boards focus on the good works that have been done in the school district over the past year. It'll be due, if we're going to get print copies of it, it'll probably be due in end of January. And usually the boards pick somebody who is going to do the write-up or a group of folks that will do the write-up. So I wanted to make sure that was on people's radar.
And so would there be a write-up for TRSU? And so maybe between you, Adrian, myself, we can kind of come up with something. Does that work for you, Adrian?
We'll probably do like mid-January because it has to go to.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. New hire for special education.
We want to talk about me too.
Oh, you interviewed her. Do you want to give your?
Yeah.
How you?
So this is a special educator to come here and join Tracy Churchill at Cavendish. Having been in the building, and Emma can pipe in as well, it is sorely needed at this time. There is the money in the budget, which was confirmed from Cheryl. It is hard to find special educators. This one is a known entity. She actually has worked at Cavendish in the past. And I believe people enjoy her. You know, the one concern is that she tends to move around a lot. Currently, she is living in Jacksonville, Florida, with the intent of coming back if she gets the position. We did talk about the difficulty in finding housing. It sounds like she does have a plan with people that she knows. She is got her licenses. Her licenses are completely up to date. She's got early childhood education, special education and early childhood education, and then special education 8A. She's quite qualified.
And she's also fluent in Spanish, and that will be helpful for our ELL students.
We just had two new students and their Spanish speakers have been wonderful. It's been a wonderful family.
And we were really excited that she applied, and Tracy was very happy with it too.
Good. All right, so a motion to approve, sorry, I don't have her name in front of me.
Maria.
Maria,
I'm not even.
I know, but that's why I need to see it. There was.
Lane, Amber has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Amber.
That's all right. You were actually answering it. I was trying to wonder who the her was. So if you could just give me this, excuse me.
It is Maria.
Spelling of her last
And I'm
name.
going to spell the last name for you. It is G as in girl, ELSOMINE. And for clarification, she does have a PhD for
Thank you.
name. So I would look for a motion to approve the special ed position hire for Maria Gelsomine. Sorry if I'm butchering that. Anybody want to make that motion?
I move to approve.
Thank you. Second. Thank you, Julie. Any other discussion about the special ed hire? All right, all those in favor of the hire?
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody opposed? Thank you. And welcome, Maria.
Thank you.
Public comment. I knew we had some people sign on, but I don't know. Any hands for public comment?
I think it's just us now.
Okay. Next meeting date and future agenda items. We will be meeting in Ludlow on December 5th.
We add the budget.
We should add the budget. Anything else that? All right. Self-board evaluation. Board members were given and have read the agenda and background materials prior to the meeting. Seemed like we all did. Board members are respectful to each other, the public and the administration. I think we were successful. Board members handled conflict openly and constructively.
Yep.
We did good. I don't think we had much conflict. Board members focused on the role and responsibility of the board. Thank you. And board members act as a team. Once a decision has been made, we work collaboratively throughout the decision-making process. Thank you. All right, I'll take a motion.
Moved.
Thank you. Second? All right, adjourn at 6:50. Thank you.